The neurologist closed the door. Then he locked it. He looked at me with a face I will never forget. Not anger, not confusion. Something worse. Fear. "Mr. Whitfield," he said quietly, "what I'm about to tell you, you cannot repeat to your wife. Not today. Not until you're ready." I sat there, 68 years old, hands trembling on my knees. He leaned forward. "Your wife's brain is perfectly healthy. There is no neurological condition, no disease, no deterioration." I blinked. "Then why is she—" He raised his hand to stop me. "The real question, Mr. Whitfield, is what she's been doing to your son." My heart stopped. "Keep her away from him," the doctor whispered. "Starting tonight." I didn't understand. Not yet, but I would. And when I did, it broke something inside me that will never fully heal. You're probably wondering how a 68-year-old retired postal worker ended up sitting in a neurologist's locked office, hearing the worst sentence of his life. Let me take you back. My name is Harold Whitfield. I was born in 1957 in a small town just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I married my wife, Eleanor, in 1982. I was 25. She was 23. She was beautiful. Not the loud kind of beautiful. The kind that made you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. Brown hair, green eyes, a voice that could calm a thunderstorm. I loved her from the moment I saw her. We built a life, a modest one. I worked at the post office. She stayed home after our son, Michael, was born in 1986. We weren't rich, but the house was warm. The food was good. And every night, I came home to a family. That was enough for me. But I didn't know what was happening behind the walls of my own home. Not for years. Not for decades. Michael was a sickly child. That's what we were told. That's what Eleanor always said. From the time he was 4 years old, he was in and out of doctors' offices. Stomach cramps, dizziness, fatigue that would put him in bed for days. "He's just fragile," Eleanor would say softly, pressing a cold cloth to his forehead. "He needs his mother." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was the most devoted mother I had ever seen. She tracked every symptom. She kept a notebook. She researched medications. She slept beside his bed during the bad nights. I admired her for it. Every teacher, every neighbor, every relative said the same thing. Eleanor is a saint. And Michael? He grew up thin, anxious, and dependent. By the time he was 20, he was on 4 different medications. By 30, he could barely hold a job. He had no friends, no confidence, no life outside our house. He lived with us. He always lived with us. And Eleanor made sure of that. But I didn't see it. Not then. The problems began 3 years ago. That's when Eleanor started having her episodes. She would forget things, simple things, where she put her keys, what day it was. Once, she left the stove on for 6 hours. Then came the mood swings. One moment, she'd be laughing. The next, she'd be sitting in a dark room, staring at nothing. "It's her age," my sister said on the phone. "Take her to a doctor." So I did. We saw our family physician first. He ran blood work. Everything came back normal. "Maybe it's neurological," he said. "I'll refer you to a specialist." That's how we ended up in Dr. Anand Patel's office on a cold Tuesday morning in October. Eleanor didn't want to go. She fought me on it. "There's nothing wrong with me, Harold," she snapped. "I don't need some stranger poking around in my head. You left the stove on again, Ellie. You forgot Michael's medication twice last week." Her face changed when I said that. Not embarrassment, not concern. Something flickered behind her eyes. Something cold. "Fine," she said, "if it'll make you stop asking." I should have paid more attention to that look, but I didn't. Dr. Patel was thorough. I'll give him that. He ran an MRI, cognitive tests, memory panels, reflex exams. He asked Eleanor dozens of questions. He observed how she spoke, how she moved, how she reacted, and then he asked to speak with me alone. Eleanor protested. "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of me." Dr. Patel smiled gently. "It's standard procedure, Mrs. Whitfield. I just need to ask your husband about family history. Routine. She stared at him, then at me. Fine. She walked out. The nurse closed the door, and Dr. Patel locked it. That's when my world changed. Mr. Whitfield, your wife does not have a neurological condition. I exhaled. So she's okay? That's good news. No, he said. It's not. He placed her file on the desk. Her MRI is clean. No lesions. No atrophy. No signs of early dementia or Alzheimer's. Cognitively, she performed above average for her age. Then why the episodes? The forgetfulness? He paused. During the examination, I asked your wife about medications in the home. She listed yours. Blood pressure. Cholesterol. Then she listed your son's. Michael's, yes, he takes several. She listed 7 medications, Mr. Whitfield. I froze. 7. Your son is prescribed for. I confirmed with the pharmacy. For medications, all properly prescribed by his physician. Then what are the other 3? Dr. Patel leaned back. That's what concerns me. My hands went cold. 2 of the additional medications she mentioned are sedatives. The 3rd is an antiemetic, commonly used to treat nausea. But in certain doses, in combination with other drugs, they cause chronic fatigue, cognitive fog, digestive distress, and extreme dependence. He let that settle. Mr. Whitfield, how long has your son been ill? Since he was a child. Since he was 4. The doctor closed his eyes. Just for a second. And I saw it. That look. The one you never want to see on a doctor's face. Grief. I believe your wife has been administering unprescribed medications to your son. Possibly for a very long time. The room tilted. That's no. No. Eleanor loves Michael. She's dedicated her entire life. There's a condition, he said carefully. It's called factitious disorder imposed on another. Some people know it by its older name, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. I had heard the term before. On the news. On some crime show Eleanor watched on Tuesday nights. But that was about strangers. Monsters. Not my wife. The parent, usually the mother, fabricates or induces illness in a child. Not out of hatred, but out of a need to be needed, to be seen as a devoted caregiver. The selfless one. The saint. Saint. That word again. My throat closed. She keeps him sick. I whispered. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. And she keeps him close. I drove home in silence. Eleanor sat beside me in the passenger seat, humming softly. She seemed relieved, almost cheerful. See, she said, nothing wrong. I told you. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. When we got home, Michael was on the couch, pale, thin, wrapped in a blanket, even though it was 65 degrees. How'd it go? He asked weakly. Eleanor walked over to him and pressed her hand to his forehead. Mommy's fine, sweetheart. Don't worry about me. Did you take your afternoon pills? Yeah, all of them. She smiled, and I saw it. For first time in 37 years, I truly saw it. It wasn't love in her eyes. It was ownership. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark beside Eleanor, listening to her breathe, and I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. I thought about Michael at 4 years old, his little body curled up in a hospital bed, Eleanor crying beside him, holding his hand. Everyone praised her. I thought about Michael at 12, missing school for weeks, falling behind, no friends invited over because Michael's too fragile. I thought about Michael at 22, dropping out of college, coming home. Eleanor said it was for the best. I thought about Michael at 35, living in our guest room, barely able to drive, taking 7 pills a day. 7, 3 of which he never needed. My son had been poisoned, slowly, quietly, lovingly, by his own mother. And I let it happen. That thought nearly killed me. The next morning, I did something I had never done in my marriage. I lied to Eleanor. I'm going to the hardware store. I said, need a new faucet washer. I went to see a lawyer. His name was David Chun, mid-40s, sharp, calm, the kind of man who listens more than he talks. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, he leaned forward. Mr. Whitfield, What do you want to happen? I want my son safe. I want the truth documented. And I want it done quietly. He nodded. Then here's what we're going to do. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. David Chun connected me with a forensic pharmacologist, a specialist who could test Michael's blood and hair samples for long-term chemical exposure. But I needed Michael to agree to the test without Eleanor knowing. So I waited for a Thursday, Eleanor's garden club day. The one morning a week she left the house without Michael. I sat down next to my son. Michael, I need to talk to you. He looked at me with those tired eyes that had been tired for 30 years. What's wrong, Dad? I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to trust me. Can you do that? He nodded slowly. I want to take you to a doctor, a different doctor, just for a blood test. That's all. Why? Mom already manages my... I know she does. That's why I'm asking. Something shifted in his face. Not understanding. Not yet, but a crack. A tiny crack in the wall his mother had built around him for a lifetime. Okay, Dad. The results came back in 5 days. The forensic pharmacologist's report was 12 pages long. I only needed to read one sentence. Chronic low-level exposure to lorazepam and promethazine, consistent with sustained oral administration over an extended period, likely exceeding 10 years. 10 years. At minimum. My son had been drugged for at least a decade, probably longer. The hair follicle analysis couldn't go back further than that. I sat in David Chen's office and cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just a 68-year-old man weeping into his hands because his whole life had been a lie. We have enough, David said gently. What do you want to do now? I wiped my face. I want my son back. David filed for an emergency protective order. We contacted Adult Protective Services. We involved a detective from the county sheriff's office, a woman named Sergeant Dana Morris, who specialized in elder and dependent adult abuse. Everything moved fast after that. But Eleanor didn't know. Not yet. She still hummed in the kitchen, still pressed her hand to Michael's forehead, still counted out his pills every morning and every night. 7 little pills in a row, 3 of which were slowly destroying him. I watched her do it one last time on a Sunday morning. She looked up at me and smiled. He seems a little better today, don't you think? I nodded, but inside, I was counting the days. The confrontation happened on a Wednesday. I had arranged it carefully with David Chun and Sergeant Morris. Eleanor was in the kitchen, preparing Michael's afternoon medications. When the doorbell rang, she opened the door. David Chin stood on the porch, flanked by Sergeant Morris and an APS caseworker. Mrs. Whitfield, David said, "May we come in?" Eleanor looked at me. I was standing in the hallway behind her. "Harold? What is this?" "Let them in, Ellie." Her eyes narrowed. That cold flicker again. The one I had missed for 37 years. They sat at our dining table. Michael was in the living room, confused but quiet. Sergeant Morris placed a folder on the table. "Mrs. Whitfield, we have the result of a toxicology analysis performed on your son. The results indicate long-term administration of medications that were never prescribed to him." Eleanor's face didn't move. Not a flinch. Not a blink. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said calmly. David opened a second folder. Pharmacy records. Purchase histories. 3 medications bought under Eleanor's name, in cash, from 2 different pharmacies over the past 11 years. "These are yours, Mrs. Whitfield." David said, "Lorazepam, promethazine, diphenhydramine, none prescribed to your son. All found in his blood." Eleanor looked at me, and for the first time, I saw her mask slip. It wasn't guilt. It was rage. "You did this," she whispered to me. "You went behind my back. You poisoned our son, Eleanor." "I took care of him," she shouted. "I gave him everything. I was the one who sat up with him at night. I was the one who sacrificed. You were at work. You were always at work. He needed me." Michael appeared in the doorway. He was shaking. "Mom." Eleanor turned to him, and instantly the mask came back. Soft, warm, motherly. "Sweetheart, don't listen to them. They're confused. Come here. Let Mommy." "Don't." Michael said. One word. But it was the first time in his life he had ever said it to her. She reached for him. He stepped back. And something broke in that room that will never be repaired. Eleanor was arrested that evening. She was charged with aggravated assault, administering harmful substances, and dependent adult abuse. The judge set bail. She posted it the next day with money from an account I didn't know she had. Another secret. Another lie. But the protective order held. She was not allowed within 300 feet of Michael. Davidson also filed emergency divorce paperwork on my behalf. After 41 years of marriage, I was leaving the woman I had loved since I was 25. Not because I stopped loving her. Because I finally loved my son more than I feared the truth. The weeks after were the hardest. Michael went through withdrawal. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies. The quiet kind. Headaches. Shaking hands. Nights where he couldn't sleep. And mornings where he couldn't get up. But slowly, very slowly, he began to change. His color came back. His appetite returned. He started walking around the block. Then 2 blocks. Then a mile. One morning, about 6 weeks after Eleanor's arrest, Michael came downstairs dressed in jeans and a clean shirt. "I'm going to apply for a job at the library," he said. I looked at him. My son. My real son. The one I had never been allowed to meet. "That sounds good, Michael." He paused at the door. "Dad?" "Yeah." "How long do you think she was doing it?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect him, but he deserved the truth. "The doctor thinks, possibly since you were very young." He stood there for a long moment. "I thought I was broken," he said quietly. "My whole life, I thought something was wrong with me." "There was never anything wrong with you, son." He nodded, swallowed hard. Then he walked out the door, into the sunlight, and I watched him go, standing in my kitchen, alone, 68 years old, crying for everything that was taken from him. Eleanor's case went to trial 5 months later. She pleaded not guilty. Her attorney argued that she was a loving mother who simply supplemented her son's care with over-the-counter medications, that any harm was unintentional. The jury didn't buy it. The pharmacy records, the toxicology, Dr. Patel's testimony, Sergeant Morris's investigation, Michael's own testimony, delivered in a shaking voice that silenced the entire courtroom. "She told me I was sick every single day of my life," Michael said from the stand, "and I believed her because she was my mother." Eleanor was convicted on all 3 counts. The judge sentenced her to 6 years. She showed no emotion when the verdict was read. She simply looked at me, sitting in the 3rd row, and mouthed 2 words. "You'll regret this." I didn't look away, because I already had my regrets. 37 years of them. The divorce was finalized 2 months after the trial. The house, our house, stayed in my name. It always had been. Eleanor had tried to get it transferred years ago. I had said no, one of few times I ever did. Now I understood why she wanted it. It was never about the house. It was about control. Michael is doing better now. Not perfect. Maybe never perfect. You don't lose your entire childhood and walk away whole. But he's working. 3 days a week at the county library. He shelves books and helps with the children's reading hour. He moved into a small apartment 2 miles from my house. His own space. His own refrigerator. His own pills. The real ones. Only the ones his doctor prescribes. He came over for dinner last Sunday. He cooked. My son cooked me dinner for the first time in his life. Chicken and rice. A little overcooked. A little underseasoned. It was the best meal I've ever had. People ask me sometimes. Friends. My sister. People at church. "Do you miss her?" And the honest answer is yes. I miss the woman I thought she was. The green-eyed girl who made me forget my words. The wife who hummed in the kitchen. The mother who sat by her son's bed. But that woman never existed. She was a character, a performance, a mask worn so perfectly for so long that even the woman wearing it forgot where the mask ended and her real face began. I'm 68 years old. I live alone in a house that's too big and too quiet. But my son is free. For the first time in his life, he is awake, clear-eyed, standing on his own 2 feet. And if I had to burn down everything I built to make that happen. I'd do it again. I'll leave you with this. Not every monster looks like a monster. Some of them tuck you into bed. Some of them make you soup when you're sick. Some of them count your pills and press their hand to your forehead and whisper, "Mommy's here." And if you're watching this and something in your life doesn't feel right, a person who seems too devoted, a loved one who never seems to get better, a child who is always too fragile, trust that feeling. Don't wait 37 years like I did, because the scariest prisons aren't made of bars. They're made of love that was never really love at all.